Hi, good morning. Once again to Cardigan. Today's video is about elections. Across Wales at the moment, if you look at these headlines of the newspapers, there's an election just about to begin within the next week or two. I'll read the headline of the Western Mail: election storm over Drakeford easing of lockdown briefing. As if to say, the people of Wales don't want lockdown to ease. Yeah, mate. Yes, mate. Whatever. So that alludes to, again, a certain agenda being played out by the media, as we're seeing across the globe. And rather than objectively convey what's true, the motivations of those above the glass ceiling in various clubs, sects, syndicates, hidden secret societies, clubs, hidden meaning a cult, are not divulged to the general public, you and I. We're not privy to the actual agendas, what's going on. And again, this is the follow-up to the video just yesterday, whereby we're looking at the Cardigan Council agenda as to what they're really hoping to do with the layout of the town, because it's clearly not the line, the narrative that we're being fed officially, that, you know, they're just making it up day by day. And so we get to elections, and what is the and how elections work is that they collect a mandate from the people and then assume, often tacitly, but then from the fact that their authoritative mandate was charged, when I say charged, like a battery, like an electrical input, by the mandate of the people. And the people believe that if they vote for this party or that party or this candidate or that candidate, then something may be different this time from the previous times. And yet what we see is different faces, same agenda. Very rarely do we see any part of the political process that actually addresses some of the underlying foundational issues that cause the problems that we experience on a day-to-day basis as members of the public. So we have a couple of young fresh faces coming in this time, Amanda Jenner and Thomas Davis. There's another Thomas, I think, for one of the other parties. And so these fresh faces come in, and you know, some of the criticism someone like me might get is, oh, you're so cynical, give them a chance, they might be different. Well, it's very unlikely they'll be different because of motivations. What are the motivations? Well, again, you get down to the common denominator, brass tacks. You get down to the foundational base level of society, and motivation tends to be money. So how are these candidates likely to be motivated? Well, it's, as with the majority of people, through money. And where do these political parties get their money from that will then pay people like Amanda and Thomas? Not from you and I, the public, the voters. Their money comes from the parties, and the parties' money comes from various avenues, and often that causes a partisan and skewed set of motivations for the parties. So if the money's coming in from one area, let's say big business, and they're hoping to get the votes from another area, i.e. the general public, then there's a bit of a conflict and a clash at some point. Because if the public, as we looked at with Cardigan, want certain decisions, but the money from, you know, lobbyists and big business, you know, via the chairman and the whips who aren't voted in, they're not representative, the money of our, in inverted commas, representatives doesn't come from us, the public. It comes from the chairman and the party. So they're not motivated financially by us, the voting public. So the whole kind of the whole essence of voting is obfuscated on account of money. Similarly with law, as we looked at in the last video. Because we are led to believe that, once every 4 or 5 years we have this valve release of democracy where, for a couple of weeks everyone's kind of involved in democracy, and then we decide on our boss, our leader, our czar, our emperor, our president, whatever the boss character is, and then it's kind of tacitly understood that the boss character then makes all the decisions and we don't have any say. We just have to hope that next time we vote for somebody who's better or nicer or more morally upstanding. But it's never the same, because the agenda keeps on rolling out, and it's different faces, same agenda. But the whole foundational basis of democracy should be that we, the people, as representatives, as voters, have a representative or representatives. Bear in mind there's 4 tiers, right? Local council, Welsh Assembly, Westminster government, European government. And which tier has the tax? Well, it's the third one up, the Westminster. So they're the only really important one because of the motivation factor. And so with this representative issue, we are kind of indoctrinated through school, because it's the same system. We're trained to conform in school. We have a sort of dictatorial boss in the classroom, and what they say goes, and we don't really have any say in decision making. And similarly, we're taught that like Pavlov's dog with the bell, through to adulthood, where we're choosing someone to take authority, to be in charge of us. Whereas when you dig into the principles of what a democracy should be, it should be the other way around. These representatives that we are choosing should come to us and say, what would you like us to do? How can we help? We are your servants, your public servants. You see how inverted it has become? Because what we have is this battery charge of the election, where the election gets charged up with all these votes, and then they think, look, there's that many people who voted, so we got a mandate for power. We'll do what we like, and we'll alter the layouts of West Wales towns at our whim, as we like, if and when, because we are now the bosses for this set period of time, and until they, as voters, realise the democratic scam that's going on in terms of elections, then they'll just keep on going. So my takeaway on this one, my conclusion is, or my advice is, don't vote. Don't charge their elections and their system with your votes, because votes are like volts or amps or whatever that go into an electric current. If they don't have any volts or amps, they don't have any power, and the only way they can have volts or amps or power is through votes. So the less votes that go into the system as a whole, because the thing is, people get into tactical voting, right? They look at the lesser of two evils. Oh, well, we really don't want that guy to get in or that candidate to get in, so tactically we better vote for the other one. It's basically like saying, what'd you like for dinner? Here's a plate of dog's vomit, and here's a plate of dog's feces. Which one are you going to have? And then you go, well, that one's less worse, so I'll have that one. It doesn't really have much logic to it. The takeaway is, get out of the system, the sect, syndicate, and show them demonstrably that you disapprove of the whole machine. That you're not a cog in this mad murderous, as we're seeing at the moment, machine. Get off the hamster wheel. Digging a little further into the mechanics of how party politics works in this country, and basically most countries. It's the same template, very much like a global corporation, Starbucks, McDonald's, whatever it is. It's the same template that's rolled out because it's a money-making operation. And what you have are party chairmen. So, for those of you old enough to remember Michael Heseltine, he was chairman of the Conservatives, and he was then in charge of, from a company perspective, company hierarchy, he was in charge of the whips. And the whips were basically the line managers who, metaphorically speaking, got the whips out and told the MPs what to do. So there's a real conflict of interests. They compromised these representatives, because if the chairman says, well, we're going to war, someone upstairs above the glass ceiling in the ivory towers has said we need a war, we've got to go to war, like Iraq, for example, 2003, the whips are then sent out to whip the MPs into shape and into position, into the correct decision. So if the electorate, the public of an area, so we're talking about Cardigan, so let's talk about a guy called Ben Lake, I believe is the MP, but these elections might change all this. And so he then, finds out from the people that this is in the ideal, template world where it should be done ideally. He would then find out from the people what they want him to represent them with. So he'd go up then to the Forum, Westminster or Cardiff or whichever one, and he'd say, the people of Cardigan have asked me to present this in this way from this perspective, and I'm their representative and their servant, so I shall do that. However, what happens in reality, in the real world, is that the MPs are thinking about their own income, domesticity, life, and they know that they're paid by the party. So the chairman decides who gets what position and therefore what income, and the whips go around and make sure they're doing as told. Very much recommend the film In the Loop. Peter Capaldi, the Doctor Who guy, he plays a character called Malcolm Tucker, who's a whip, and so he goes around then and just bullies everybody. One of his quotes is, I will throw you to the media hounds of hell, where you'll be helped into an assisted suicide. That tells you a lot, right? That the MPs have a lot to lose if they start divulging secrets, for example, or agendas. So they're very controlled. And they're very scrutinised too. So there's another really funny bit from the film, really recommend it, In the Loop, where the sort of weak MP character wants to sound good on the Question Time debate programme, BBC 10 at night. And he says, there's always a fun question at the end. I want to sound good for the fun question. So he wants to practice, he wants to prep the fun question at the end of Question Time. And there's a scene with Peter Capaldi, the whip, who apparently is supposed to represent Alistair Campbell during the Tony Blair years. And he's listening to the radio recording of this debate, BBC debate thing. And he's basically deciding on whether or not the MP thinks, and therefore says, the right thing in line with the party line, the party narrative. And so he's not happy with it, and he goes over into his office and then bullies him, into making sure he doesn't make that mistake again. So it's very much amateur or professional dramatics, right? It's a stage theatre pantomime, but the difference being is that regular actors learn their scripts before they perform, whereas in this sham democracy, the inverted commas representatives of the people retrospectively learn what they should have said or should have thought, and the whips via the chairman, and then those further up the chain into the shadows of the theatre. They will be, approving or disapproving of how this politician, representative, councillor, assembly member, whatever, are carrying out what they require them to carry out. It's very coercive, very manipulative, often blackmail and bribery, and these MPs are totally controlled. They're not their own people. So that's why elections are irrelevant, because what the people think or what the people want is very secondary to what the chairman and the powers that be upstairs want. So it's irrelevant. It's a sham, and it's a duplicitous theatre production. You know, even though it's ad-libbing, it's still very controlled ad-libbing.